Fraser's house?
He says ought to kill Cunningham. Says a man's a danger to me.
You well?
We take her into the surgery.
You've seen some terrible things. I have to. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, I mean, Jan Matthias, who directed episode 1, he directed also in season 7, and he was sort of my mentor, very much so throughout the whole process. And it was amazing. It was learning from a very, how do you take this blueprint script and from day one, like what are the steps in prep and how do you sort of like build your visual language, build your thematic language, build sort of your vision for how it's going to come to life. And Barbara Stepansky was our writer producer on that, and I was very lucky that I was also directing her episode, so working so closely with her was really amazing. And Meryl has always been sort of a champion for me in sort of stepping into this new role, and it was just I loved that part. It was so incredible. And it was great working with all the different departments and the crew that I've known for over a decade. Like, that was so special because they're all so talented and amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they gave her an episode, didn't they? She had a lot to contend with, a lot of, big moments, from drama to the bear, which is, huge, to some really big stuff. I think it's one of the strongest episodes of the season, and I really loved working with her. She's a great actress, as we know, so she makes a great director. She's extremely hardworking and has a great energy about her, great humor, very approachable. I loved working with her. She's brilliant. And myself, it's something I've been thinking about. It's a huge undertaking. I didn't want to direct on Outlander. I thought, despite being on the show for many years, I feel like perhaps there's not much ownership, because there's a lot of other people that make decisions. So I thought, if and when I do direct something, I wanted to be something that I could fully be in control of.
It was great. I mean, it's always good to have an actor's director, which obviously Katrina is, and she knows the show so well. So that was a second bonus. And I mean, obviously it's a little tricky because she was in the scenes quite a lot too. So having her run back and forth is tricky for everyone, including her. But she did a really great job. In terms of wanting to do it, I don't know, maybe years down the line, but not right now. I like to just kind of go in, do my acting and get out. I think on a TV show, it's different in that the producers, is still kind of heavily involved in the edit. Whereas I think for a film or something where directors have to kind of sit with it for 2 years, I really admire that patience. I kind of like to be onto the next thing. So as of yet, I've not got that sort of hunger just yet.
I definitely do at some point want to get into directing. I do have a sort of a love for cinematography just generally, but I think it would need to be a real passion project. I think it's something I'm really passionate, worthwhile, because it's a huge thing to direct something. There's a lot of prep. You need to be overseeing, the bigger picture and how it all connects, and then Sophie's saying you're in the edit for quite some time after that. So it's a huge chunk of time taking on a project, and that time commitment grows exponentially depending on the size of the project that you're doing. So if it was the right thing, when the right thing comes along, then most likely.
Did you enjoy working with Katrina in that respect as well? What was it like getting to be directed by her? I know that's Sophie just said, but...
Yeah, it was great. I know that she had some apprehensions about directing, because there's some scenes that Sam and I are in together. So I think she was feeling like she might have been working with a couple of school kids at times, but I think we all got along really well. I mean, I gave her that respect and that space that she needed as a director. At least I felt it did anyway. But she's great. Like Sophie was saying, she knows this show so intimately. She knows the characters so intimately. She's been with them for every minute of the show, and I think she just has a very organic way of dealing with the cast that's really great, really creative.
Hey, I'll never say never. I was incredibly impressed with Katrina. I actually got to work with her before she did the full episode. She did like an Outlander extra scene. And so I knew we were in completely safe hands. I think that was one of the first things she ever did direct, or the first thing that she directed and acted in at the same time, which was obviously a big part of her role as a director in episode 2. So no, I was immensely proud of her. But the one drawback I will say is that because she had a million things to think about, we kept being like, come and play with us, come hang out between shots. But she was far too busy juggling not just the role of Claire, but everything that is required of a director. But we already have such a shorthand, and she had such a shorthand with the crew as well after working with some of them for, over a decade. So the whole operation was really smooth, and I would love to work with her again. I thought she was amazing. She's an amazing friend already, but to work with her as a colleague in both capacities was a dream.
She's really in at the deep end in a directorial debut. Like, not only is she also leading the episode as an actor, she's also doing these insane big set pieces and like huge kind of like ensemble stuff. She's cutting her teeth at a very high level, but she did such an amazing job. I think she was so committed to making sure that she got all the prep time that she needed, and really, I think she's been gunning to direct for a while, so this was like a really amazing moment for her, and I think we were all just wanting to support her in that in the best, like, most helpful way that we could be, however that was. But Kat's such an amazing actor, so I think that like getting to see her insight of how she thinks about a scene, or how she thinks about a character's emotional arc or journey, or the ways that she kind of navigates those things day to day was like a really amazing insight into kind of her wonderful brain. But at the same time, she's such a actor's director, like the way that she gives everybody the same amount of attention and care. You could have one line, or you could be like the lead of the show, and she would care about your queries and concerns and questions about your character equally. And I think that is a really rare thing. She's bloody good at it, so I think she'll do more.
To be honest, it was so exciting planning all that. It also changed a lot very quickly. We had been planning the whole thing. It was supposed to be a cougar attack. And then 3 days before shooting, they were like, actually, we're turning it into a bear. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to replan that whole scene. But that was what's so exciting about directing. I didn't realize how much I would love all of that, the problem solving, these things happen on shows all the time. Things change for a myriad of different reasons. An animal's not available or something else. And so it was like, okay, we've planned it this way because that's how a cougar would attack. A bear attacks differently. I just have to redo everything. And it's like there's an adrenaline to that. It was so cool. And so, it's like you have the location and you have to try and figure out how it's all going to cut together and everything. And it was honestly so fun. Like, I know it's gruesome and violent. But it was great working with the prosthetics team, just getting all of the different components together, we had a drone operator to sort of do the POV of the bear, and you're sort of working with storyboards with them of what they can achieve, and does it line up with how you visualize it. I honestly, I felt like I was buzzing for the whole, 10 weeks that I was doing prep and then directing, because it was just the most exciting, crazy. I mean, I was exhausted afterwards, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely what you said in terms of just having a scene with all the women just kind of not really doing anything but just chatting was really lovely, that we had a scene where that could just breathe in the show, because there's often so much to fit in that we don't get to see that. So just kind of having a moment of the women of the ridge was really lovely. But there's so many logistics in that scene. I mean, there's only certain blueberries you could pick because the bushes were fake, the blueberries were fake, they were sprayed. And then we kind of had a drone that was kind of your eye line for the bear, but then also you just kind of had to pick an eye line, and you're in a forest. There was so many logistical things that we were fighting with. Then obviously it's Scotland, so the weather is its own character in the show. So we were also battling with the changing sunshine in the forest and all of that. So it was definitely a messy scene. But yeah, I think it worked out in the end. And then just logistically for Brie, you know, kind of having to berry pick around your gun and then get the gun out and do all of that. It did feel like more of an action scene than maybe it looked. But yeah, it's such a shocker as an opener of a scene. And I think for Brianna, it's just such a brutal reminder that we're back in the past now. This stuff happens.
Yeah, well, I had the same experience as you when I was reading the script. I thought, oh God, how nice that we're getting to see all the girls hanging out on like the day-to-day. We're kind of seeing them do what they would probably do on, I don't know, like a Sunday after church, you know, like hanging out with the girls. I was like so happy, and then I kind of turned the page and read the attack part, and I was like, it ends in trauma. Okay. But yeah, it was super fun to film. You know, it was Katrina and then us four girls, and we were just having a great time in a beautiful location, not unlike your background. And yeah, we were having a great time. And to be honest, it's one of those things that when you film a scene like that, it doesn't really translate in the way that it does on screen. So obviously there was no real bear, and obviously Amy Lindsay was totally fine, and there was no blood and gore. We kind of were just having to imagine that the bear was kind of approaching, and that was kind of maybe the final 2 shots of the day that we did. So everything else up until that point was laughing and joking and having a great time. So I think when I saw the early screeners, when it cuts to her with the kind of like horrible prosthetics, I was like, oh God, that actually is really shocking, because it didn't feel that shocking on the day. So I'm glad that it translated. But yeah, I think it's really sad. It's a really sad moment. She's talking about how happy she is on the ridge and how she's found love, and then the next minute she's being mauled by a bear. It's not great.
Be in that position, to have taken that mantle, I think. But other than that, I remember it being a genuinely sad scene. And Gary Lamont, who plays Amy's partner, Amy's husband, played it beautifully, and the kids as well. It was one of the kids that was crying by the bedside in particular. It was just really sad. It was really quite an emotional scene.
I mean, we didn't have a bear. We don't get bears in the UK. But so you have to then figure out, well, how am I going to achieve that with what I have? So it's all about, how do I use the camera? How can I get that kind of like POV and that attack? And yeah, it was just our actress was so incredible, and doing all of the reactions and all of that, and then the prosthetic team just really did the most amazing jobs. It's great working with the editors as well. It's like, okay, how can we put all this together? And you know, it's such a puzzle, and it was just, yeah, it was so fun slotting all the pieces together.
I love that you said that. It is so lovely to see some hope, I think, in Outlander. It's always balanced with hope, but especially with Ian's past, you know, it's not always been so easy. Yeah, to be those, for Ian, I think it's especially lovely because he's always, I think, sees himself as like almost like the adopted son of Jamie and Claire in a way. So now it's his turn to instill all of those values and lessons that he's learned onto this new little bit of life. Yeah, but moving forward, nothing's ever so simple in Outlander. So yes, there's going to be some time with the baby. Rachel and Ian are certainly going to be discovering what that changes, how that changes their dynamic. However, in typical Outlander fashion, the stakes are higher, and there might be some journeys that have to be made, which, if anyone, I certainly know, having looked after some babies myself in the time, getting them into the car seat is troublesome enough. So imagine taking them across half of the country, but needs must. And And certainly, I think this baby's going to grow up with some very loving, caring, understanding parents. So yeah.
I think you're so right. Yeah, it's such a lovely moment for Fanny, kind of redefining and reframing what it means to have a baby and become a mother, and making her feel wanted within the family, and understanding that children aren't a burden, they're a gift, and all these other things. I think Fanny's been through a lot. She's so young, but she's been through so much, and I think that like she's finally come home at Fraser's Ridge, and we all kind of take turns looking after her and imparting different parts of wisdom. But that's a really lovely moment where I think she sees how much love this family has to give, and that she'll be safe there. I think, Rachel has some nice scenes with Fanny where, you see her maternal instinct kind of kicking in, and she offers help and guidance. And I think, Rachel's going to be a great mom. She's very kind, very loving, very patient, but she's also feisty and will stand up for what she thinks is right. And she's very open-hearted. Both her and Ian are people who don't quite belong where they should or where they began. They both changed so much from the communities that they kind of grew up in, that they both kind of exist in this like liminal middle area, which is why they are the yin to the yang with each other. But it also makes so much sense that they found each other, because they're both quite like independent thinkers. And I think that those are only good attributes to have as a parent.
He begins to question, the validity and the motivation behind the book, and whether there's truth to it. And then obviously spoilery, but he then comes to terms with it and goes to face his destiny. And I think it's a huge moment, because Jamie's always been prepared to die for his family and for those he loves, but he's not prepared to live without them. But this is, it's really hard for him, because they've had times before in history where they've been told their fate, and they fought against that or tried to find a way around it. But I think they know now that it's really hard to dodge fate. So I think for him, this is a real test of his mental health.
I think I think it's hard for her to sort of understand why he would write this. Obviously she lived with him for 20 years after she returned, and she didn't know anything about this book. They had a contract where she wouldn't talk about Jamie, and so she pretty much thought that he would leave it as well, and they had gotten on with their lives. And when we look back at season 3 of how that marriage ended and where they sort of ended up, it's like, I think the last thing she would have expected was that he, in the background, was sort of doing all this research on Jamie, and it sort of doesn't make sense to her. It's a hard one to sort of, I think she just doesn't really understand why he would have done that.